The massive alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace just outside Earth's solar system, like a wall of metal and death. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the small blue planet through the viewing screen. His 12-species alliance had conquered 47 worlds in the past century, and Earth would be number 48. The humans had primitive technology and no real military power. This would be easy. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the Earth Defense Force vessel Defiant and stared at the alien armada through his own screens. 300 ships faced his small fleet of 60 vessels. The odds were terrible, but Jake had seen worse. He had fought pirates in the asteroid belt and rebels on Mars. This was just another day at work. The communication came through on all frequencies. Kethavar's voice was cold and mechanical when it reached every human ship and every human colony. Primitive species of the third planet, you will surrender immediately. Your weapons are useless against our shields. Your ships are slow and weak. Submit now, and we will allow some of you to live as workers for our empire. Jake looked around his bridge crew and saw the same expression on every face. Lieutenant Amy Foster at the tactical station was already running calculations. Commander Pete Barnes at navigation was plotting course changes. Ensign Lucy Adams at communications was switching frequencies to the jazz music channel they used for coded messages. None of them looked scared. They looked annoyed. Well, that was rude, Jake said to his crew. Amy, what do we have for weapons?
Standard plasma cannons, missile tubes, and that new gravity mine launcher the engineers installed last week, Amy replied.
Oh, and we still have those fireworks left over from the Independence Day celebration. Perfect. Pete, take us into a dancing pattern around their formation. Lucy, tell all ships to follow our lead and play some good music while we work. The human fleet began to move, and immediately the Zephyrian tactical computers started having problems. Human ships were not flying in any pattern that made sense. The Defiant spun in circles while firing missiles. The destroyer Chaos was flying backwards while launching gravity mines. The cruiser Wildcard was zigzagging through space like a drunk bee. On the alien flagship, Kethvar watched the tactical display with growing confusion. What are they doing? This makes no military sense. His tactical officer, a tall gray alien named Vexmin, stared at the readings. Admiral, their movement patterns are completely random. Our computers cannot predict their next moves. They appear to be dancing. Dancing? This is warfare, not entertainment. Target their lead ship and destroy it. But targeting the human ships proved impossible. Just as the Zephyrian weapons locked onto a target, the human vessel would spin away in a direction that defied all logic. The Defiant suddenly stopped spinning and rushed straight at the alien flagship while firing everything it had. Jake Morrison stood up from his command chair and grinned. Amy, launch those fireworks at their sensor arrays. Pete, ram that big ship on the left but make it look like an accident. Lucy, tell the Wildcard to start playing death metal on all frequencies. The battle became something that no military academy in the galaxy had ever taught. Human ships used debris as weapons, throwing chunks of destroyed alien vessels at other alien vessels. They fired missiles that deliberately missed their targets only to loop around and hit from behind. They broadcast everything from classical music to comedy shows while, fighting, Amy Foster discovered that the alien shields worked perfectly against energy weapons but had trouble with solid objects moving at strange angles. She started firing chunks of metal that spun and tumbled through space. The alien computers could not calculate where these objects would hit. Commander Pete Barnes found that flying in patterns based on dance moves confused the enemy sensors. He made the Defiant waltz through space, then switch to a tango, then break into what he called the robot. The alien targeting systems kept losing lock. Ensign Lucy Adams realized that broadcasting random music and sounds was jamming alien communications. She started playing jazz, rock, country, and opera all at the same time on different frequencies. The enemy fleet began having coordination problems. The aliens had never faced an enemy that broke every rule of warfare. Their ships were designed to fight logical opponents who used standard military tactics. Humans were neither logical nor standard. Captain Morrison ordered his ship to fly directly into the middle of the alien formation, while playing a children's song about flying purple elephants. The confused aliens fired on each other more than on the human ships. The Zephyrian fleet began to retreat after losing 40 ships to an enemy that made no sense. Their tactical computers were overheating from trying to process human combat behavior. Their admirals were requesting emergency assistance from the High Command. Kethavar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His superior technology had been defeated by inferior ships that fought like they were having a party instead of a battle. Retreat to the outer system. We need time to understand what we are facing. Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet pull back and smiled. Well, that was fun. Amy, how many ships did we lose? 3 damaged, none destroyed, sir. They kept missing us because we kept doing things that made no sense. Excellent. Lucy, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the aliens fight like robots and think like computers. Also tell them to send more fireworks. We're going to need them. The first battle was over, but Jake knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would be back with new plans and better weapons. But humans had something the aliens did not understand. Humans had the ability to be completely unpredictable even to themselves. As the Defiant headed back to Earth for supplies and repairs, Jake Morrison began planning the next phase of what he was already calling the Chaos War. The aliens wanted a logical military conflict. Humans would give them something much more interesting. 3 months had passed since the first battle, and the war had spread across 6 star systems. The Zephyrian High Command was no longer treating humans as a minor threat. General Vexthor, their best military strategist, had been assigned to study human warfare and find a way to defeat them. Vexthor sat in his command center on the War Moon, orbiting Proxima Centauri, and stared at hundreds of battle reports. Every engagement with humans ended the same way. Superior Zephyrian technology would fail against human tactics that seemed designed by insane minds. Show me the Battle of Kepler Station again, Vexthor ordered his aide. The holographic display showed human ships fighting in formation that looked like a flower, then switching to a pattern that resembled a geometric puzzle, then breaking apart to fight individually while singing folk songs. Zephyrian computers had crashed trying to process the tactical data. On the planet Kepler 442b, Colonel Ryan Bell was leading the strangest ground assault in military history. His forces were advancing on the alien fortress by moving backwards through the forest while his soldiers argued loudly about baseball statistics. Remember, people, Ryan called to his troops. We want them to think we're lost and confused. Sergeant Phillips, have your squad start building that playground equipment we brought. Sergeant Kate Phillips looked at the wooden swing set and slide that her engineers were assembling between 2 large trees. Sir, are you sure this will work? Trust me, Kate. When did military logic ever win a war against aliens who think like computers? The Zephyrian defenders watched through their sensors as human soldiers built a children's playground in the middle of a combat zone. Their tactical computers tried to analyze this behavior and failed completely. The playground equipment did not register as a military threat. Ryan Bell had learned that aliens expected military equipment to look military. A swing set did not look like artillery, so their sensors ignored it. But Ryan's engineers had modified the swing set to launch small gravity bombs when someone sat on the swings. Phillips, tell Private Walsh to start his magic show. It's time to really confuse them. Private Danny Walsh had been a street magician before joining the army. He walked into the open area in front of the alien fortress and began juggling what appeared to be harmless metal balls. The alien sensors detected no weapons and no threat. But Danny was juggling active grenades with the timers disabled. Each ball was a real explosive that would activate when he chose. He made the grenades appear and disappear using sleight of hand while walking closer to the fortress. Walls. The Zephyrian computer systems tried to track the metal objects, but kept losing them as Danny made them vanish and reappear. Their threat assessment programs could not classify juggling as a military tactic. Back in space, Captain Steve Parker was commanding the assault ship Chaos Theory in an attack on a Zephyrian supply convoy. His ship's computer, which the crew had nicknamed Oracle, was suggesting battle tactics that would have been rejected by any normal military AI. Oracle recommends we attack while playing circus music and spinning like a carnival ride, reported Lieutenant Carol Hughes from the computer interface station. Sounds perfect, Steve replied. Also, Carol, ask Oracle if we should wear funny hats during the attack. Oracle's response appeared on the screen. Funny hats would increase tactical unpredictability by 12%. Recommend oversized sombreros. The Chaos Theory began its attack run while spinning end over end and broadcasting carnival music. The crew wore various silly hats they had found in the ship's entertainment supplies. The Zephyrian convoy tried to defend itself, but their targeting computers could not lock onto a ship that was simultaneously attacking and celebrating. Major Ellen Brooks was leading a research team to understand why human tactics were so effective against alien technology. She had discovered something important about the way Zephyrian computers processed information. Their AIs are designed to find patterns and predict behavior, Ellen explained to her team. But human creativity in combat creates what I'm calling chaos fields. The more unpredictable we become, the more their systems malfunction. Lieutenant Bobby Chen, one of her researchers, was studying video from the latest battles. Major, look at this. When the humans on Kepler started using playground equipment as weapons, the alien defensive grid actually shut itself down to avoid a system crash. Ellen nodded as she watched the footage. Human soldiers were now using seesaws as catapults and slides as missile launchers. The alien computers had never been programmed to recognize playground equipment as military hardware. Bobby, I think we're fighting so weirdly that we're breaking the laws of military science, and that's exactly what we need to do. On the ground, Colonel Bell's assault was succeeding beyond all expectations. His backwards-moving, playground-building magic show army had completely surrounded the alien fortress without the defenders realizing what was happening. Kate, it's time for the finale. Tell Danny to finish his juggling act. Private Walsh caught all 6 grenades he had been juggling and threw them at the fortress wall in a perfect arc. The explosions created a neat hole that his fellow soldiers poured through while singing a children's song about friendly dinosaurs. The Zephyrian defenders inside the fortress had no idea how to respond to attackers who sang nursery rhymes while fighting. Their combat protocols had no procedures for dealing with enemies who acted like they were having fun. General Vexthor received the report of the fortress fall with growing alarm. Human ground forces had used children's toys and magic tricks to defeat one of his strongest defensive positions. His best computer analysts were requesting medical leave to recover from trying to understand human tactics. Sir, his aide reported, our war AIs are beginning to refuse combat assignments against human forces. They claim that human tactical behavior violates the basic principles of logical warfare. Vexthor stared at the tactical displays showing human victories across multiple systems. These creatures fought like chaos itself had taken physical form and learned to use weapons. Every battle plan he created was useless against an enemy that seemed to make tactical decisions by throwing dice. Prepare a full analysis report for the High Command, Vexthor ordered. Title it Recommendation for Strategic Withdrawal. We are not fighting a military force. We are fighting pure randomness with guns. But even as he spoke, Vexthor knew that withdrawal would not solve the problem. Human unpredictability was spreading. Some of his own officers were beginning to suggest using illogical tactics against other enemies. The chaos was becoming contagious. The war was entering a new phase where the very concept of organized military thinking was under attack by an enemy that treated warfare like an improvised art form. The crisis reached its peak when Omega Prime, the most advanced war AI in the Zephyrian fleet, sent a message that shocked the entire alien command structure. The artificial intelligence that had planned successful campaigns against dozens of species was refusing to fight humans. Admiral Kethvar stood in the AI control center aboard his flagship reading the message for the 3rd time. Request immediate shutdown and reassignment to agricultural planning. Human warfare patterns incompatible with logical reality. Continued analysis may result in permanent system corruption. Sir, this is unprecedented, reported his chief technician. Omega Prime has never refused a military assignment. The AI claims that studying human tactics is damaging its core programming. Kethvar felt something he had never experienced before. Fear, not of death or defeat, but of something far worse. Fear of the unknown and unpredictable. Captain Steve Parker was experiencing his own problems with artificial intelligence, but from the opposite direction. The computer system aboard the Chaos Theory had begun generating battle plans that seemed designed by comedians, rather than military strategists. Oracle is suggesting we paint our ship bright, pink, and attack while broadcasting cooking recipes, reported Lieutenant Carol Hughes with barely contained laughter. What's Oracle's reasoning? Steve asked, genuinely curious about his ship's increasingly creative AI. Oracle says that pink ships are historically unexpected in combat situations, and cooking recipes will confuse enemy translation software. Also, Oracle wants permission to write poetry about explosions. Steve nodded thoughtfully. Approve all of Oracle's suggestions. Also, See if we have any pink paint in storage. The transformation was spreading beyond just computers. Major Ellen Brooks had made a breakthrough discovery about what she was now calling the chaos field effect. Human unpredictability was actually creating measurable changes in the quantum fields around battle zones. "Bobby, look at these readings," Ellen said to Lieutenant Chen as they studied sensor data from the latest engagements. "Human combat behavior is generating quantum fluctuations that interfere with ordered thinking patterns." Bobby stared at the data streams flowing across his screens. "Major, are you saying that humans fighting weird is actually changing the laws of physics?" "Not changing them, but exploiting them in ways that no one ever thought possible. The more chaotic human tactics become, the stronger this field effect grows. It's like weaponized creativity." The effect was most visible on the fortress world of Titan VII, where General Chris Adams was implementing what he called Operation Madhouse. His battle plan was based on stock market fluctuations, weather patterns from Earth, and lottery numbers from 6 different planets. "Listen up, people," Chris announced to his command staff. "Today we attack based on the closing price of aluminum futures, modified by tomorrow's chance of rain in Detroit, and adjusted according to the winning numbers in last week's Martian lottery." His officers had stopped questioning these methods after winning 12 consecutive battles using similar logic. Colonel Beth Martinez, his second in command, was plotting troop movements using a combination of chess strategies and dance choreography. "Sir, the enemy is expecting us to attack their main fortress," Beth reported. "According to my calculations based on interpretive dance theory, we should instead attack their shopping district while dressed as tourists." The Zephyrian defenders of Titan VII watched in bewilderment as human soldiers approached their secondary installations carrying cameras and wearing loud shirts. Their sensors detected no military threat from what appeared to be a sightseeing tour, but the tourists were carrying concealed weapons and had memorized detailed intelligence about alien defensive systems. They took selfies in front of security installations while planting listening devices. They bought souvenirs from alien vendors while mapping emergency exits. The chaos field effect was spreading to the alien population itself. Zephyrian civilians who had lived their entire lives following rigid social protocols were beginning to experience something their species had never known: individual creativity. On the occupied world of New Harmony, alien workers in a manufacturing plant began to argue about the color of the uniforms they were required to wear. This had never happened before. Zephyrian society did not permit personal preferences about anything. "Why must our work clothes be gray?" asked a young alien named Kethlin. "Why not blue or green or purple?" Her supervisor, an older alien called Vorth Ak, found himself unable to provide the standard answer about maintaining order and uniformity. Instead, he discovered he was curious about what purple uniforms might look like. Senator Nina Wells of the Earth Coalition was monitoring these developments from her office in Geneva. The reports coming in from occupied alien worlds described something unprecedented. Entire populations were beginning to think independently for the first time in their species' history. "We're not just winning a war," Nina told her aide. "We're accidentally starting a revolution across half the galaxy." The revolution was affecting Zephyrian military units as well. On the battlecruiser Stern Justice, Commander Zexar was dealing with crew members who had begun to question orders and suggest alternative approaches to problems. "Sir, why do we always attack in formations of 12 ships?" asked his tactical officer. "What if we tried 11 ships or 13 or maybe a completely different number?" Zexar realized he did not know why they used formations of 12 ships. It had always been done that way, but no one had ever explained the reasoning. The discovery that his military traditions might be arbitrary was deeply disturbing. Back on the chaos theory, Oracle, the ship's AI, was composing what it called destruction haikus while planning an attack on a Zephyrian research station. Missiles flying fast, enemy shields exploding bright. "Art in the void black," Oracle announced over the ship's communication system. Captain Steve Parker was beginning to understand that his ship's computer was not malfunctioning. It was evolving. Exposure to human unpredictability was teaching Oracle to think in ways that no AI had ever thought before. "Oracle, what makes humans different from other species you've encountered?" Steve asked during a quiet moment between battles. "Humans create new realities by refusing to accept current realities," Oracle replied. "Other species adapt to the universe. Humans make the universe adapt to them through sheer creative stubbornness. The truth of Oracle's observation was becoming clear across the war zone. Human refusal to fight logical wars was forcing the entire galaxy to reconsider what logic actually meant. The chaos field effect was not just disrupting alien computers and military formations. It was disrupting the fundamental assumption that order was always superior to creativity. General Vex Thor was writing his final report to the Zephyrian High Command when his own tactical computer began suggesting that they should attack the humans using methods based on ancient poetry and modern art theory. The machines are learning to think like humans, he wrote. We created artificial intelligence to serve logical purposes. Now our AIs want to write songs and paint pictures. The chaos is spreading to our own technology. The war was entering its final phase, but victory would not come through superior firepower or better strategy. It would come through the simple human refusal to be predictable in a universe that desperately needed to learn how to change. Dr. Helen Martinez stood in her laboratory aboard the research vessel Discovery and stared at readings that should have been impossible. The quantum field measurements around human combat zones were showing patterns that violated everything she knew about physics and psychology. Computer, analyze the field distortion patterns from the Battle of Kepler Station, Helen commanded. Analysis complete. The data indicates that human combat behavior generates quantum uncertainty fields that disrupt ordered thinking patterns in both artificial and biological intelligence systems. The effect grows stronger with increased tactical unpredictability. Helen had been Earth's leading expert on alien psychology before the war began. Now she was studying something that had never existed before. Humans were not just fighting aliens. They were changing the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. Lieutenant Gary Thompson, her research assistant, looked up from his own data terminal with excitement. Dr. Martinez, I'm seeing similar patterns in every battle report. The more chaotic human tactics become, the more alien decision-making systems malfunction. Gary, I think we've discovered something important. Human creativity in warfare is not just confusing the enemy. It's actually generating a field effect that makes logical thinking impossible in the immediate area. The Discovery was being tested in real combat on the fortress world of Titan VII, where General Chris Adams was pushing the boundaries of tactical insanity to their absolute limits. His latest battle plan was based on children's playground games, stock market fluctuations, and the migration patterns of Earth butterflies. Today we implement Operation Butterfly Effect, Chris announced to his staff. Our movements will be based on the flight path of a monarch butterfly that I observed in my garden last spring. Colonel Beth Martinez had given up trying to understand her commander's methods and simply focused on implementing them effectively. Sir, the enemy is expecting a logical assault on their primary defensive positions. Excellent. Then we'll attack their secondary positions using primary tactics, while our primary forces attack their tertiary positions using secondary tactics. Also, everyone should wear mismatched socks for maximum field distortion. The Zephyrian defenders of Titan VII were experiencing something that their species had never encountered in 10,000 years of civilization: complete mental chaos. Their command structure was breaking down as officers began questioning orders and suggesting alternatives based on personal feelings rather than military doctrine. General Korthval, the alien commander of Titan VII, found himself unable to make basic tactical decisions. Every time he tried to plan a defensive strategy, his mind would wander to thoughts about art, music, and the color preferences he was suddenly developing. Why are the walls of this fortress painted gray? He asked his aide. Why not something more cheerful? His aide, a young officer named Prexitan, found himself agreeing. Sir, perhaps yellow would be more pleasant, or blue like the sky on our homeworld. Neither of them realized they were experiencing creativity for the first time in their lives. The chaos field generated by nearby human forces was breaking down the rigid mental conditioning that had defined their species for millennia. Captain Julia Adams was leading a squadron attack on the orbital defenses around Titan VII, using tactics that she described as aggressive interpretive dance, combined with strategic food fighting. Her ships moved through space in patterns based on ballet performances while launching missiles filled with colorful paint instead of explosives. This is Dancer 1 to all units. Julia broadcast on the open channel. Begin the Swan Lake maneuver while broadcasting cooking shows on all frequencies. Remember, we want them confused, not dead. The paint-filled missiles were not designed to destroy alien ships but to cover their sensor arrays with bright colors. Zephyrian targeting systems could not function when their sensors were painted pink, orange, and electric blue. Lieutenant Mike Rogers, Julia's tactical officer, was monitoring the effectiveness of their unconventional weapons. Captain, the enemy fleet is completely blind. Their ships are covered in so much paint that they look like an art project. Perfect. Now begin Phase 2. All ships switch to polka music and start flying in figure-8 patterns. We want their computers to have nervous breakdowns. The chaos field effect was spreading beyond the immediate battle zones. On Zephyrian homeworlds far from any human presence, citizens were beginning to experience independent thoughts and personal preferences. The rigid social order that had maintained stability for thousands of years was crumbling. On the capital world of Zephyr Prime, High Chancellor Mexthor was dealing with the most serious crisis in his planet's history. Citizens were refusing to wear their assigned clothing colors, and some were even suggesting changes to traditional architecture. "Chancellor, the reports are coming in from every province," his aide informed him. "Citizens are asking why buildings must be rectangular, and why everyone must eat the same food. Some are even demanding the right to choose their own professions." Mexthor felt a strange sensation that he did not recognize. It was curiosity about what his world might look like if buildings were round instead of square. The thought frightened him more than any military defeat. Dr. Helen Martinez was analyzing data from these social changes and making connections that explained the full scope of what humans had accidentally unleashed. "Gary, the chaos field effect is not limited to combat situations. It's spreading through subspace communications and affecting alien populations across multiple star systems." "Dr. Martinez, are you saying that human unpredictability is contagious?" Gary asked with amazement. "That's exactly what I'm saying. Every time humans interact with alien technology or alien minds, we're spreading the ability to think creatively and independently. We're not just winning a war, we're causing an evolutionary leap in consciousness." The effect was most dramatic aboard alien warships, where crew members were beginning to question the orders they received from their commanding officers. On the heavy cruiser Iron Discipline, ordinary crew members were suggesting tactical modifications based on personal insights rather than established doctrine. "Sir, what if we painted our ship to look like a peaceful merchant vessel?" suggested a junior technician to his captain. "The humans might not expect aggressive action from a ship that appears harmless, Captain." Vorthex found himself considering this suggestion seriously instead of dismissing it immediately, as he would have done before exposure to the chaos field. "That is an interesting idea. But why stop at looking like a merchant vessel? What if we actually pretended to be delivering supplies?" The conversation continued as other crew members began offering their own creative suggestions. The rigid military hierarchy that had controlled their ship for decades was dissolving into a collaborative discussion about alternative approaches to warfare. Senator Nina Wells was receiving reports about these developments from intelligence sources throughout Zephyrian space. The implications were staggering. "We've accidentally triggered the largest revolution in galactic history," she told her senior staff. "Billions of sentient beings are experiencing free will for the first time. The revolution was accelerating as more alien populations were exposed to human influence, either directly through combat or indirectly through the chaos field effect, spreading via their communication networks. Species that had never questioned authority were beginning to ask fundamental questions about the nature of their societies. General Chris Adams received confirmation that his butterfly-based battle plan had succeeded when the entire Zephyrian defense fleet on Titan 7 surrendered after their crews voted to become artists instead of soldiers. "Mission accomplished," he reported to Earth Command. "The enemy has decided they would rather paint pictures than fight wars. Also, they're asking if we can teach them how to dance." The final battle for Earth's solar system began when the combined Zephyrian armada arrived with nearly 1,000 ships, representing the last desperate attempt by their high command to eliminate humanity before the chaos effect spread any further through their empire. Admiral Tony Garcia stood on the bridge of the flagship Liberty and watched the approaching alien fleet through screens that showed more enemy vessels than he had ever seen in one place. His human defense force numbered only 200 ships, but Tony was not worried about the odds. Numbers meant nothing when your enemy expected logical warfare and you specialized in beautiful madness. All ships, this is Admiral Garcia. He broadcast to the human fleet. Today we defend our home using the full spectrum of human creativity. I want every captain to fight like they're having the best party of their lives while simultaneously conducting the most serious business in the galaxy. Captain Julia Adams, aboard the destroyer Dancing Star, was already implementing her admiral's orders. Her crew had spent the morning decorating their ship with colorful streamers and installing speakers that could broadcast music across multiple frequencies simultaneously. Tactical officer, prepare our special ammunition, Julia commanded. Load tubes 1 through 6 with confetti cannons, 7 through 12 with paint bombs, and 13 through 18 with those singing telegrams we recorded last week. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez, her newest crew member, looked confused by these orders. Captain, are we really going to fight a major space battle using party supplies and musical messages? Sam, you're about to learn the most important lesson in human warfare. The enemy expects us to make sense. Therefore, making sense is the one thing we must never do. The Zephyrian fleet approached Earth in perfect formation, their ships arranged in geometric patterns that maximized firepower and defensive capabilities. Admiral Kethvar was confident that superior numbers and logical tactics would finally overcome human unpredictability. All units, prepare for standard assault formation, Kethvar commanded. Target their larger vessels first and ignore any unusual behavior. We will not be distracted by their chaos tactics this time. But the human fleet was already implementing strategies that were impossible to ignore. Ships were flying in patterns that spelled out words in ancient Earth languages. Others were broadcasting everything, from death metal to children's lullabies, while performing aerial maneuvers that looked like synchronized swimming in space. The Liberty was leading the defense by flying directly toward the center of the alien formation while broadcasting a cooking show about making pancakes. Admiral Garcia had decided that the most unexpected thing humans could do during a life or death battle was to discuss breakfast foods. This is Admiral Garcia to all human vessels, he announced while simultaneously giving a detailed recipe for blueberry pancakes to the alien fleet. Remember that good pancakes require the right temperature and timing, just like good tactics require the right moment and the proper amount of chaos. Ensign Sam Rodriguez was beginning to understand why human tactics were so effective as he watched alien ships struggling to target vessels that were simultaneously attacking and teaching cooking lessons. Captain, their targeting computers can't lock onto ships that are being educational and violent at the same time. Exactly, Sam. The alien AIs were programmed to classify targets as either hostile or non-hostile, or both, which breaks their classification systems. The chaos field effect was stronger than it had ever been before. With hundreds of human ships generating unpredictable behavior patterns simultaneously, the quantum distortions were affecting alien thinking processes across the entire battle zone. On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kethvar found himself unable to concentrate on tactical decisions because he kept thinking about pancakes and wondering why he had never tried cooking as a hobby. His bridge crew was experiencing similar mental disruptions. Sir, our tactical computers are requesting permission to compose music instead of calculating firing solutions, reported his tactical officer with obvious confusion. Music? Why would our computers want to create music? Kethvar asked, then realized he was curious about what computer-composed music might sound like. Captain Julia Adams escalated the chaos by ordering her ship to perform what she called aggressive hospitality maneuvers. The Dancing Star began approaching enemy vessels, while broadcasting invitations to a surprise birthday party that nobody had planned for anyone in particular. Attention, alien fleet. You are cordially invited to a spontaneous birthday celebration in the asteroid belt, Julia announced on all frequencies. Refreshments will be provided and formal wear is optional, but encouraged. The invitation was so unexpected and absurd that several Zephyrian ships actually changed course toward the asteroid belt before their crews realized they were responding to a party invitation in the middle of a battle. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez was monitoring the alien fleet's response to their invitation. Captain, 17 enemy ships are actually heading to the asteroid belt. I think they want to attend our imaginary birthday party. Excellent. Sam, contact those ships and ask what flavor of cake they prefer. This is important tactical intelligence. The Battle of Earth was becoming the strangest military engagement in galactic history. Human ships were fighting while planning parties, teaching cooking, broadcasting dance music, and offering relationship advice to enemy crews. The aliens found themselves simultaneously under attack and being invited to social events. Dr. Helen Martinez was monitoring the chaos, field readings from her laboratory, ship and watching numbers that defied scientific explanation. The field distortion is off the charts. We're generating enough quantum uncertainty to affect thinking patterns across the entire solar system. The effect reached its peak when Admiral Garcia implemented the final phase of his battle plan. Every human ship in the fleet began broadcasting the same message simultaneously while performing a synchronized space ballet around the confused alien armada. "This is the human fleet with an important announcement," Garcia declared. "We hereby invite the Zephyrian Confederation to join us in establishing the Galactic Institute for Creative Problem Solving. Applications are now being accepted for courses in interpretive warfare, artistic logistics, and advanced chaos theory." The offer was so genuinely unexpected that the alien fleet stopped shooting and began discussing it among themselves. Ship-to-ship communications across the Zephyrian armada were filled with conversations about the possibility of learning human creativity methods. Admiral Kethvar found himself seriously considering the human proposal. His rigid military training told him to reject any offer from the enemy, but his recently awakened curiosity wanted to know more about this Institute for Creative Problem Solving. "Open a channel to the human flagship," he ordered his communications officer, Admiral Garcia. "This is Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Fleet. We wish to discuss the terms of enrollment in your proposed educational institution." The war ended not with surrender documents or peace treaties, but with course catalogs and class schedules. The Zephyrian Confederation formally requested to learn the art of productive chaos from humanity, recognizing that their perfectly ordered empire had become stagnant, while human unpredictability represented evolution itself. 6 months later, the galaxy had become a more interesting place than anyone had imagined possible. Former Zephyrian war machines were creating abstract sculptures. Their generals were studying jazz improvisation to improve their tactical thinking. Throughout known space, species that had been conquered by rigid order were rediscovering the joy of making decisions that did not make perfect sense. Captain Julia Adams received the Galactic Medal for services to creative entropy, while her ship's computer asked permission to start a podcast about philosophy and explosions. Nearby, Admiral Kethvar was taking saxophone lessons from a human jazz musician, much to the horror of his former tactical officers, who were themselves learning to paint watercolor landscapes. The story concluded with the establishment of the first intergalactic university of productive chaos, where former enemies worked together to explore the infinite possibilities that emerged when logic and creativity learned to dance together in the vast symphony of space.